Brandon, great to see you, man. Welcome to Popternative.
Thank you so much, Peter. Really appreciate it.
You know, we have more Sweet Magnolias. Season 4 is now streaming worldwide on Netflix. I feel like the excitement every time a new season comes out, it's insane, right? And you've done this now for 4 seasons, but I'm just curious because, like, that script to screen journey is really interesting, right? Because every season you get these scripts, you see them kind of come to life on screen, and a lot of things happen in between. What is that like for you, that script to screen journey for Sweet Magnolias? Does it change throughout the seasons, or is it kind of the same thing over the 4 seasons for you?
Yeah, I mean, it really, I do have like a process that, listen, every project's different, right? But my approach to most projects is the same in that, we get the scripts a certain amount of time before we start filming, and I spend the first part of that journey, as you say, just getting into the lines, getting into the words and memorizing. I mean, that's a massive part of what we do. And so I like to have all the words in me, and I go over them as rote as I possibly can, not attaching myself to anything. And that way when I do get on set, like I'm ready to play. Yeah. And that's where the fun begins. So you do all that work beforehand.
That's like the vacation almost, if you think about it.
That's right. Yep. That's right. Yep. Yeah. Well, the vacation for me is the actual work when you can sink your teeth into it. You're on set. Like, I mean, it's I mean, it's just really the greatest joy is to be able to get in there and work with other actors.
I mean, the job of an actor in a lot of ways is auditioning. Like, that's what it is. That's where the work is. You know what I mean? Like getting these breakdowns, doing tapes, doing auditions, and then you book it and it's like, woo, let's go. You know what I mean?
I mean, some of my best work nobody will ever see. It's all been in an audition room. I mean, we do so much pro bono work. You put your heart and soul into it as if you're on set filming it. And statistically, you're probably not going to get it,
Absolutely. And I'm really wondering, and I think Cheryl J. Anderson does a really good job with this, and I'm wondering what your opinion is on this, because the focal point of this show is family and friends. That is what it is. That is that's Sweet Magnolias. But then and more elements come out more in certain seasons, but then there's like all these other elements, right? And themes that are sprinkled throughout episodes, right? And characters, right? There's like the heartfelt components of it. There's heartbreak, you know what I mean? There's a lot of tragedy. There's a lot that happens. What are those elements that you like the most about that show, given that family and friendship is focal point? Are there other elements that stand out to you as well?
I mean, I think you nailed a lot of it. There's so much. Cheryl does such a great job, and all the other writers of it's difficult to keep that many storylines going, and have each one of them have weight and meaning, and there's so much to each storyline. You're like, how do you do it? Everyone has this, their own respective journey that they're going through. So I love the family stuff, and it's funny. I was having this conversation with Brooke, and she's the same way. Like, I feel like it's easier for me when I'm given sustenance, when there's like meat and there's something that I can dive into. And I sometimes struggle a bit more when there's, it's more like surface stuff. And Cheryl once explained to me that, because there's so many characters, not everyone is going to be peaking at the same time. There has to be ebb and flows to everyone's journey.
Yep.
And this last season for Ronnie, it was a bit of, ebbing in a good way, even though there's a ton of reflection and discovery for him. And so that was like a new challenge for me, but I love all the character stuff, the relationships. Like, to me, that's the stuff that you can really, sink your teeth into. And I love working off of when you can dial into somebody and just take them in and let it rip.
Sink your teeth into. It's a good reference and throwback, if you know what I'm saying.
Sorry. I had to.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because, your answer, it's like that's a perfect segue to my next question. It's almost like you knew what I was going to ask, man. Like, we're on the same page here. But it's kind of like so much happens before you actually go to camera on a season of Sweet Magnolias, right? Like, you kind of brought it all up. You're also having a lot of conversations with Brooke, because that storyline just keeps getting bigger and bigger, you know what I mean? And you're always curious about it. So from an acting storyteller perspective, you can see there's 2 journeys, right? Before filming a season of Sweet Magnolias and after filming a season of Sweet Magnolias? Or does it feel like one big journey with multiple steps in between from an acting storyteller perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, I think it's one big journey with
Yeah.
just multiple steps. There's so much to a completed project,
Mhm.
and every actor obviously is different and has their own approach to it. In regards to the storylines, and now that we're, through season 4, I approach my work from almost like a human stance of like you and I, we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, we may have some things scheduled and
Yeah.
we can guess, but really, I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. And I like to approach my work that way. I don't want anything or any bit of information to inform what I'm doing in the moment. And
Hmm.
and Cheryl is really great at giving us sort of what we need or want. I know there are a few actors on the show that want to have the lines colored in more than that. And they want to know the overarching theme of, or their storyline of what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's great. And there has been a couple instances where I've had to dig a little deeper, like the whole storyline with me and Kathy last season. There were a few things that I needed to understand the backstory a bit more to inform the present.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, like it's like all the prep and everything that entails, like the scripts and the lines and the who's, the what's, the whys, so that when you get online, you could just be free of all of it and
Yeah.
and play and respond and react and be human.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna throw it out there because I feel like the answer to this, based on what you said about being in the moment as an actor as well, I feel like the answer to this is no, you don't. But I'm just gonna throw it out there. Given
Mm,
that this is a show that had so many kind of curveballs thrown and like more seasons than others, but like there's been a lot of kind of like really big cliffhangers, right? Where you're like,
yeah.
oh my goodness, like what's gonna happen next? And I'm wondering because it's such a fandom global based show because of Netflix and the fans love the show and they always have theories and they love the like they talk about who they love, like their couples they like more than others. Are you ever conscious of the audience member watching or reacting to
Mm.
Sweet Magnolias whenever you're filming it at all? Or is that something you try not to think about? Because maybe it comes up at lunch or at base camp about like, oh man, people are going to really love this, or like people are really going to sink their teeth into this one. But I'm just wondering if that ever happens. I know you try not to. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like you have these moments, right? And we've had so many moments on Sweet Mags where there have been scenes where like, oh wow, people are gonna flip out.
Yeah.
And season 4 is no exception, obviously, with the passing of Bill. I mean, that was huge. So
Yeah.
it was hard not to talk about what the reaction would be to that. But like I never go into a scene or in my preparations ever do I prepare my work in a way that I'm thinking of how it's going to be perceived, right?
Yeah,
I think I
100%.
would be doing the
You
writers
gave
a
me more. I'm
disservice,
happy, but
and
like you
yeah,
said that
yeah,
already too, so I was like, okay, then
yeah,
maybe a throwaway,
yeah,
but whatever.
yeah. But yeah, of course, man. Like you absolutely do. But I think that more comes at the end of it when you're all done. You're like, it's out of my hands. I just hope everybody loves it.
Yeah,
And you really just you have to trust the process. You have to trust the writing. You have to
yeah.
trust the directors. You have to trust, you have to trust all of it. But for me, the key is always to just be in the moment and work with what's opposite me.
When do you like understand these characters though? Like when do you kind of
Mm,
start really kind of like being have a good grasp for these characters? Because season 1 is so interesting because it's an equal playing field for everyone. It's an equal playing for you because
yeah.
you've never played this character, we've never seen this character. Season 2 I always feel like is the coolest because it's the best of both worlds. You're still learning, but you know a little bit, right? And then I feel like for your character specifically, season 3 and this season, like it's okay, we know what we're getting a little bit. There might be some surprises, but like when do you understand this character specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a really great question. I love that. And I think the answer is never.
Yeah.
I think when you're properly telling a story and when you're properly developing yourself as a character, there's always discoveries. And sure, I mean, and this goes back to casting, right? Like these casting directors and the showrunner and the producers, they cast people that align with what they or how they envisioned each specific character. So I think there's a natural way that like, oh no, I understand some of the nuances of Ronnie because some of them are nuances of Brandon, right?
Yeah.
And so you understand it in that way. But as far as like what they're going through, I mean, each script I get is like oh, it's telling a little bit more of a story of who this guy is. And that's part of the fun. And I think that's the fun of why you can do a show like season after season after season, because you're just constantly learning. And I feel like this season for Ronnie was a complete departure from what we've seen in the past with the way that he had to come back in and repair everything in his life, right? And so now it's a completely different journey for him. And there were moments where I had to have conversations to make sure that I was fully understanding, what was going on. But yeah, you're there. There's constant discoveries, and now that we've got that, I have questions about Ronnie still. So yeah, I don't know if you ever fully understand, but yet I'm comfortable in his skin, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. I feel like you're always learning. And I feel like whether you've been in a set one time or thousands of times, and I think this has to do with the fact that it's all storytelling at the end of the day, Brandon, but it's like you're playing all these different characters, right? So it's like every character is going to go through something different. You know what I mean? And like you're going to relate, you're going to react a certain way playing this character that you wouldn't on another show. And that's like my last question too, and we're gonna get a little deep, and I'm putting my filmmaker hat on, is like Sweet Magnolias is all about kind of figuring things out and taking it day by day and self-reflection and all that and that slice of life component. And I'm wondering for you from an acting perspective, what do you think about playing these characters that are lost? And we see some characters in Sweet Magnolias that are more lost than others, right? But like you look at Roddy, for example, there were some seasons where he seemed a little lost and figuring things out, but like, is it more fun? Is it more challenging playing these characters that are lost, doing self-reflection? Because from the audience member's perspective, they don't know they're lost, right? So I just find that really interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, I think it's more fun. I think anytime that you can listen, everything you do is, I don't like to think of myself as an actor. I like to think of myself as a human, exploring human behavior under imaginary circumstances,
You're a guy
right?
wax.
That's it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that is really the goal of what we do is to be human. And so you have to draw from experience. You have to draw from what's being given to you. So the more that's being given to you and the more that you have that causes you to dig deep, the easier it is to be human, you know? And that's what I love. That's the type of work that I love. And that has been my greatest joy working on this show is I really have been gifted some wonderful material, some wonderful discovery, a guy who, I think with Ronnie, it probably took him a long time to grow up and mistakes were made. And he comes back realizing that, Dana Sue and Annie, his daughter, the love of his life. And that's the most important thing is fixing that. And for 2 seasons, that's what we worked on.
Yeah.
And it was such a wonderful thing to go through in a world where I think so many people give up on things so quickly. And here we are fighting for what we love. And there's a lot of value in that. And I've had people come up to me like, you don't understand, like that story helped me with my relationship.
Yep.
And what a powerful thing to be a part of, so yeah, I love when I'm given more that causes me maybe to work harder, but that's what we're doing. That's the goods. That's what you want.
You made a thing that helped me through some tough times during my childhood. And we'll just leave it at that.
I love that. I love that so much, man. I love that so much.
And Sweet Magnolias season 4 is streaming out worldwide on Netflix, so they can check that out. Brandon, so good chatting with you, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure getting to talk to you.
Absolutely. Your Instagram account is just your name, right? If people want to keep up to date with everything.
That is right. But I am actually moving on from that. And I'm starting a website that will be up in probably like a week or 2 weeks. And it's brandonquinnofficial.com. And awesome. So that's where all my content will be.
Perfect. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Brandon Quinn and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.